I'm Mayor Ted Gatsas, and I'm here today supporting the members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council in the project that they've put together. I think you're going to find it is a very interesting project. I can tell you that I've been a great advocate of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council because of the fact that on the 2 campaign trails that I was running for the state senate, they put us into debates and probably asked us the toughest questions that we probably would face during that entire process. But I understand now you've taken a different position and you've actually questions and answers with the candidates that are running for the United States Senate.
Correct. The Manchester Mayor's Youth Advisory Council spends a lot of time focusing on bringing the youth involved in politics. And the project we're doing now is having the kids interview the people running for Senate. And now we're asking each candidate the same questions that they were received beforehand. So we're asking them these questions and we're bringing all their answers together to form a video, which we're going to show how the youth can be involved in politics and that we can actually have a voice and people will respect us.
I find that interesting. I never had the opportunity to see the questions before those debates.
Well, the idea was that we would do it in an interview style, give them the questions beforehand, and they would have the time to think it through and give, when you have a debate style, it's more like a competition where you're reacting to what your opponents have said and you're trying to do your best to come out on top. But with an interview, it's just an honest discussion of ideas. You're giving your well thought out opinion, and that was what we were looking for with these interviews. So
now, as you've watched the interview process and you've seen these candidates on the campaign trail, have you seen any of them take a different position than what they answered on the questions that you asked them?
Typically no, but the questions that we asked them seem more heartfelt because competition arises from debates, and the interview style actually changed that, so we got kind of more heartfelt answers, more well thought out answers, and it was an overall better process, we felt.
Well, I'm sure that it's going to be an interesting time, and the campaign trail is pretty hot and people are moving around, so I think that's a great thing. But tell me some of the other things, or tell the viewers some other things of what you folks actually, other things you participate in. And I think that the white paper on the dropout is something that's very important to this entire group.
Correct. The white paper is one of our other major projects, and what we're doing is we're working on increasing the graduation rate. Now we're doing this with certain ideas that we have brought together which help make resources available for the kids who are at risk. So by bringing these resources to them and creating other resources, we can help improve their chances of reaching high school graduation.
I understand that you just had a group of students come from Israel and where else?
Palestine.
Palestine. And
it was with a group called Friends Forever, and what it was is they came over and we all went to Livingston Park, and what we did was we played a soccer game actually with them. And they had a group of people walk around Doris Pond, and then we all ate pizza. And I guess we found out that maybe we're not as different as we all expected we would be, actually.
Well, I expect you're all going to be watching these interviews, and I think you're going to find that the students of Manchester certainly are putting their best foot forward. And I think that I'll be curious to watch the questions that they've asked and watch the forward-moving debate that's going to happen. So again, I want to thank everybody for their participation. And I understand that it's a pretty exciting time for all of you. I look forward to when you start the debate process again, because it's always better when you guys ask the questions right there in front of everybody and nobody has an opportunity to think about the question that you may be asking. Because I can tell you, they're great questions, and you folks put a lot of time and effort. So again, enjoy what you're going to see, and you'll get an opportunity to see the great work the civic-minded students of Manchester have brought forward.
Ovid LaMontagne is a Manchester native who attended Trinity High School. He received his undergraduate from Catholic University of America and went on to receive his law degree from the University of Wyoming College of Law. He spends much of his time focused on charitable events, and in 2009 was named New Hampshire's Distinguished Citizen of the Year by the Daniel Webster Council. Mr. LaMontagne has also served as chairman of the New Hampshire State Board of Education, and in 1996, he was the Republican nomination for governor.
What is the role of the federal government in local education? And as a U.S. Senator, what will you do to help improve the quality of public education in Manchester?
Well, it's a very good question, and I'm pleased to be with you and talking with you and other young people and others who are going to be seeing this program about the role of the federal government generally, and particularly in education. You may know that I was a high school teacher, social studies teacher for several years before I went to law school. I served as chairman of the State Board of Education in New Hampshire as well. And I really believe in local control of education. I think elementary and secondary education works best if the people at the local level are the ones who design curriculum, oversee the hiring and firing of teachers, and the type of programs that are going to benefit the students in that community. I think if you look at the Constitution, it's pretty clear that the Constitution doesn't have anything to do with education. Congress isn't delegated powers to oversee it. So my view is that the federal government really has no role over elementary and secondary education. And if you look at the performance of students since the Carter administration, when we had a Department of Education established, our student performance has not gone up. In fact, it's gone down. And we are not as prepared as we used to be to compete. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the federal government has done more than it should do in terms of influencing policy, passing No Child Left Behind, other programs which I frankly don't think the federal government should be involved with. So as a U.S. Senator, what I'd like to do is a couple things. First of all, try to deregulate the federal government from its grip on elementary and secondary education in New Hampshire. I know enough about education, public education, to be dangerous in that respect. I also want to be an advocate for public education and education in the private sector as well by drawing people with resources here to support innovative programs, try to invite businesses to partner with schools and teachers and students to provide real-world experience in the classroom setting. At the end of the day, the best education is when a committed professional teacher works with students who are hungry to learn. And that's where education takes place. And hopefully we'll have a better educational system if we let the people who are closest to it govern it.
Thank you. In October of 2001, bombing commenced in Afghanistan, marking the start of 8+ years of American involvement. Much has been made lately regarding the strategy in Afghanistan. How do you define success in Afghanistan? And as a U.S. Senator, what steps would you propose taking to ensure that success?
Well, you know, unfortunately, we've had to commit men and women in harm's way across the world over many generations of American history, and the most recent one, obviously, was in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Our nation made a decision that it was in its national interest to put men and women in harm's way to try to rout out the Taliban in Afghanistan. A Taliban which was very exploitive of women, and freedom and liberty was not present in Afghanistan, and it was the source that harbored terrorists that took down the towers in New York City. Whether or not you agree with the decision to go to Afghanistan, it was the decision that was made with the support of the Congress, bipartisan support. And I think our objective now that we have routed the Taliban out of Afghanistan largely, we're helping to rebuild a nation. And again, like it or not, our nation is exceptional in that our history has been about rebuilding, not dominating nations. When we won in World War II, we had reconstruction programs both in the Pacific and in Europe. And we're doing largely the same thing in Afghanistan and Iraq. Our definition of success now needs to be leaving that country in a stable environment, a place where people can have a healthy, productive life free of the terrorist influence that was there before, and allowing that government to function. You know, we can't be a babysitter forever, but we need to find a systematic way of withdrawing so that when we leave, it is actually a stable, functioning community, society, and government.
Okay, thank you. Ultimately, today's youth will inherit the lasting effects of the current economic crisis. What groundwork will you lay to help the next generation achieve prosperity?
Well, you know, I have two young daughters. I'm not young anymore, 24 and 21. They're great people, and I just fear for them. I fear for your generation and the generations to come that we're leaving them with a debt. We're leaving you with a debt you cannot afford to pay. At the rate we're spending at the federal government level, you'll never have the chance of the American dream that every generation before you has had. And that's why I'm running for the United States Senate, frankly. I do believe we need men and women to go to Washington who have the conviction and the courage of their convictions to make a fundamental change in what Washington does. Washington is broken largely because it's doing too much, way beyond the prescripts of the Constitution. It's spending way too much. And we don't have a revenue problem in Washington. We have a spending problem. I think the best thing I can do as a U.S. Senator is work to put us onto a path of solvency by working to balance our federal budget, doing what's called zero-based budgeting, evaluating every program. No program should be a sacred cow, and determining what we can continue to pay for, what things we should consolidate or even eliminate, and then put us onto a path of solvency. The second part of that is to give you an economy or an economic environment that allows you to form new businesses, expand existing ones, so you have more jobs available. Government does not create jobs. Private sector creates jobs. People in communities who have an idea and innovation. We need a good financial market so you can get loans. I've been past chairman of St. Mary's Bank, the nation's first credit union. We do commercial lending. I know that. I know enough to be dangerous in that area. We need to deregulate largely the small and medium-sized business financial market. We need to allow for more entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial spirit to play themselves out. And we need to lower the tax burden on small and medium-sized businesses, not increase them. And finally, I want to be a U.S. Senator who leaves office having said we've put fewer regulations in place. We've deregulated and repealed more laws that really were hurting businesses. A lot of these laws that hinder business development are antiquated, and we need to be more efficient about having a more robust environment for business growth, for job growth, and for your generation.
Thanks. What do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Well, that's a real tough question. I've been pretty busy doing a lot of things. I practice law in Divine Willamette Branch in Manchester, and I'm very involved with the community in my free time. I've been past president of the Daniel Webster Council, our Boy Scout Council, and I like doing work in civic and charitable areas. I've worked on CASA Board, which is a court-appointed special advocate. I've also worked at St. Mary's Bank as the chairman of the board there, and I say work, that's volunteer work, and I love doing that. When I have real free time, I like to hunt and fish. I snowmobile, and I like to work around the house and do some projects, building projects or whatever, and spend time with my family. I live in the same house I grew up in. I live in the same neighborhood where my grandparents lived in, and we are pretty conservative in our lifestyle. My best place to go in the world is up to Lake Mbegog, which is north of Errol. For your viewing audience, it's actually an hour north of Berlin. And it's a lake that straddles the Maine-New Hampshire border. It's a beautiful lake. It's a wonderful place to be. Our family's had a camp there since 1955. And when I have a chance to get up there to fish and to canoe and boat and hunt and snowmobile. So we do all of those things up there.
And finally, why do you deserve my first vote?
Well, first of all, I really hope that you'll vote. I'm always concerned about young people feeling disenfranchised and not wanting to vote, and I hope you will vote in November of 2010. When I was a high school teacher, the first thing I did with my classes I taught juniors and seniors, would be to go down to the town hall to have them register to vote. And if some of them were too young, but at least they knew how to do it. So the next year they knew who the town clerk was, how to access government, and voting is the first step to doing that, and registering to vote is. You can register now pretty freely in New Hampshire right at the polling place, but I would suggest you do that ahead of time when you reach the age to vote. I would hope you would vote for me because of my experience, because of my experience and what I've stood for. I've been the Republican nominee for governor. I've served as chairman of the State Board of Education. I've served in a number of functions throughout my life here in New Hampshire. People who know me know they can count on me, and count on me to say what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, and do what I'm going to say. That I commit to people, and I'm conservative, and that means I think that we need to expect more from ourselves, less of government, and that we need to work together as a community. I can work with people who aren't Republicans. I can work with Democrats and independents, and I want to do that. I want to be a person who will be the senator for all of New Hampshire citizens, and I have a record I think that you can look to at least have some confidence about where I stand and what I'll do. And in the end, it's your seat. This is a seat of the people. It's not Judd Gregg's seat or the Republican establishment seat or the Democrat establishment seat. And Scott Brown's election in Massachusetts taught New Hampshire citizens a civics lesson. I never thought I'd see Massachusetts voters doing that for us, but they did. And they showed us that these seats are the people's seats, and the nomination is for the people in the first place in September 14th. That's the first part of the process. And of course, the second part is voting in the general election, and that's in November 2nd, 2010. And I hope I'm the nominee, and I hope you'll support me at the primary if you're voting in the Republican primary, and then in the general election. And you can always join our campaign. We're going to have a volunteer-driven campaign, so you're welcome, Rachel.
Thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Good luck to you.
Thank you.